So today, we are very lucky to have our session on customer communication strategies. And we are joined by Maureen O'Hanlon from the Prism Advisory Group, who is going to talk to us a bit about information and opportunities that you might be able to leverage as you leave here today. And so without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Maureen and have her take it from here.
Thank you, Ben, and welcome everyone to the Business Boost Services. And as Ben said, today's topic is customer communication strategies. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I am Maureen O'Hanlon. I'm a founding partner of a consulting group called Prism Advisory Group. We have offices in Boston. We have offices in Phoenix, and we have an office in Lenox, Massachusetts. That's me. So anyway, very happy to be here and very happy to talk about this very important topic about customer communication strategies. When I think about communications, I really think about the glue that holds people together. So if you think about that, that's how important communications are. You can go ahead, Ben. So why do we need to care about these customer communications? The first thing, anyone who's in business, like you are, should be able to tell you that customers are the lifeline of your business. And without them, you won't be around long. So it's really important to take care of your customers and to have really robust communications with them. Effective communications can lead to increased sales, repeat business, and referrals. If customers like the way you communicate with them, it makes them feel taken care of. And it likely will translate to more sales. And ultimately, all of this is about more revenue. Increased communications, increased sales, increased referrals, increased revenue. Conversely, the cost of poor customer communications is estimated to cost US businesses close to $4 billion annually. So you don't want to be on that side of the fence. All right, Ben. So as I thought about this, putting this together, it's like returning to normal, whatever normal is going to look like, whatever it is now. But in this time of returning to normal, I think it's really important to get back to basics and to get it right. I think over the past year, we've had to do whatever we could, pull whatever out of our hats to keep our businesses up and running. But I think it's time to pause now. I think it's time to stop and really take a look at going back to basics and building from the ground up. There are some basic rules to follow with any customer communication. The first two you're going to see actually throughout this whole presentation. I think they are critical. Transparency and honesty. And I will say that customers are able to tell if you are not being completely honest with them, if you're telling them, if you're covering something up, if you're telling them a half-truth, and it does not sit well with them. So the more you can be transparent and authentic and honest with your customers, the more they will appreciate it. Consistency, and this is important because you're going to reach your customers across multiple channels. And you really want to be consistent about that message across all channels. So no matter where this customer finds you, you want to make sure that it's very consistent, it's very concise, and that the customer knows it's you when they see this message. Flexibility, I put in flexibility just because plans go awry. Plans don't go as planned. And I think we need to be able to be flexible enough to change our messaging, to change our strategy if it doesn't seem to be working. So always remember that you have the flexibility to go back if something doesn't seem to be working. Provides value, and I think this is really important. I think when we as businesses, put out communications, they're generally thought of as one-way communications. They're emails, they're newsletters, they're information that you want someone to know about your business. And I think that's fine, and I think that's good. But I also think it's important to look at those messages from a customer's viewpoint. So the communication that you're putting out to them needs to provide value. And when I say that, I don't mean discounts, I don't mean sales, I don't mean 50% off. I mean, it needs to provide some value. You know, their time is important. If they're taking the time to read your email message, if they're taking the time to read your newsletter, it should have some inherent value for them. So make sure that when you're creating these, it's not just a one-way communication, but that you're thinking of it from what's in it for my customer. And providing value is one of those things you can do for your customer. Compelling, clear, and concise messaging. And I think this goes a long way. Again, back to the consistency across all channels. If you have a clear and concise and consistent message, it's easier to be consistent across all of your channels. And then very important to measure your success. And you can measure your success at the end of a campaign if you want, but I always think it's interesting to do benchmarking, you know, at the first month, at the second month, at the third month. How are we doing? What did we plan on doing? And how are our numbers stacking up against that? And if they're not stacking up, go back to number 4, flexibility. You have the flexibility to change that. You have a flexibility to fine-tune your strategy, to fine-tune your messaging, so that it may work. All right, Ben. So a communication strategy helps you define and connect, like, who, and who in this case is the audience. So who is your target audience? You should make a list of the populations and individuals that you want to sell your product to. You can't be all things to all people. It's not cost effective, and it doesn't really serve you well, doesn't serve the audience well. So think about the audience of a dress shop versus the audience of an auto mechanic. There could be some overlap, but they're distinctly different audiences. So again, the more you can define and target your audience, the easier it will be to find them. The what in this is the messages. What are you saying to them? What do you want to say to them? What do you want them to get from you? A company's positioning and core message really helps people understand why a company is useful to them. It's helpful to understand what values the company has, what the company believes in, and how it stands apart from its competitors. So all of that happens through your messaging. The how is the channels. How are you going to get to them? How are you going to reach these people? Think about who they are and where they're most likely to be looking for you. And it's very easy in this day and age for brands to get lost in the noise in this digital age. So really be careful. Be careful about the channels that you choose, but really be careful about your messaging. If you're clear and concise, your message will not get lost. And ultimately, it's the why, the goals. What do you have? What do you have in this that you're looking to gain? It's really important to set your goals and define your purpose. Because if not, like a shot in the dark, you may or may not hit your target, but you're certainly not going to hit it every time. So it's very important to define your goals, to keep your goals, and check in with your goals. Your goals may change as your strategy evolves. Okay, Ben. Communication objectives should be defined. And these are just 3. You may have a dozen more. These may not be yours. I just put a few just to give you an example of what some communication objectives may look like. Creating brand awareness. You can use communications to really transform your company into a brand. And think about this, you have customers, potential customers out there who have never heard of you, and they're getting your message for the first time. So in creating that brand awareness, think about what it is that you want them to take away from that. What about your brand do you want them to integrate and to say, this is important to me. I relate to this. They have the same values that I do. So think about that as you're creating your brand awareness, what it says about your brand. Ultimately, you want to build loyalty, and we'll talk a little bit about that later in the presentation. But you need to build loyalty with customers. So the first thing is to get them in the door. The second thing is to keep them happy. Third thing is to have them return. And then they become loyal to you. And your loyal customers are the backbone of your business. We're going to talk about loyal customers. We're going to talk about acquiring new customers. They're all very important, but you can't have a business without a backbone of loyal customers. And then lastly, you really want to impart some knowledge. You have some knowledge about your brand, about your products, about your services, and you really want to impart that knowledge to them. So again, what's the best way to do that? What's the best messaging to do that? And what do you want them to take away from that? Because really you are introducing your brand to them, and they're either going to say, yeah, that seems like a perfect fit, or no, this isn't for me. So you really need to be thinking about that carefully. Ultimately, having a defined communication strategy or plan really will lead to smarter decisions, and I think in the end save a lot of time and money, because if opportunities present themselves to you, you'll know if you have a plan and a strategy if this fits with your strategy. If it doesn't, leave it behind, and if it does, take advantage of it. But so it really allows you to be more clear about what's going to get your message across. Right, Ben? So one thing that I think people should do, and not just once, but you should do it maybe, every now and again, I think you should research your competitors. I think it's really important for you to know how they're communicating and what they're communicating, what channels and messages are being used. I would say visit their website, look at what they're offering, look at their pricing, look at their shipping policy, look at their return policy, look at their guarantee policy. Just look at the whole package. How is their website? What does it say about their company? What does it say about the ease of doing business with them? Is it easy navigation? Is it click to chat? Is it somebody that you can talk to if you have a question or a problem? So I think it's really, you can learn a lot from going on your competitors' websites. And then ultimately from this, what you want to do is create your own unique positioning. You know what the customers, what the competitors stand for now. You don't want to be that. You want to be something else. So define what your own unique positioning is, and that's the message that you're going to communicate out to your customers and potential customers. And ultimately, there are 3 main goals for a communication strategy, and this really makes up the rest of the presentation, just giving you a little preview here. So ultimately, you want to keep your existing customers. Loyal customers, as we said, are the backbone of your business. I'll give you some reasons in the next section why they're so important, but you really need to keep your existing customers. At the same time, you need to be attracting new customers. The well is never dry. You always need to be putting new customers into the mix and hopefully turning them into loyal customers. But attracting new customers is definitely part of any business's communication strategy. And then lastly, something that companies don't generally want to talk about until it's too late is crisis communication. And I'll give you some tips on coming through a crisis and having a plan to do just that. I think that's it for this section, Ben. There you go. I can take questions now if anyone has any. This was just kind of an introduction to why this is important and why we're doing this. As I said, we're going to get into more nitty gritty as we go on, but if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.